morning. My name is Maya Hay and welcome to my presentation on healthy fats. Some of you might be looking at this title and going, that is a total oxymoron. Healthy and fat do not go together, but hopefully by the end of this presentation you will understand that all fats are not created equal. We will be looking specifically at saturated and unsaturated fats today. So, how many of you have looked at a food label, specifically the saturated, polyunsaturated, monounsaturated fats, and gone, what is this? Hopefully by the end of this presentation we will clear some of that confusion up and we'll be able to look at food labels and make our dietary decisions accordingly. So here's what to expect from this presentation. By the end of this presentation we should be able to list some examples of saturated and unsaturated fats. And when given some food items, we can make substitutions on healthier options. We will simulate preparing a batch of cookies, as we do not have an oven here, but I will give you a recipe and look out for a secret ingredient. I totally stole that idea. And then being able to distinguish between a saturated fat and an unsaturated fat given the original food source. So we'll go through some practice together so that we can kind of walk out of here knowing what sorts of foods have saturated and unsaturated fats. Can you hear me back there?
Yes.
Excellent. All right, so before we dive into this, why bother? What's the big deal, right? How many of you know what this logo stands for? One person. Fantastic. And what is that red dress?
Heart healthy.
Yes, because heart disease is the #1 killer for women, and as this room is primarily women, sorry Keith, that is a this is a very pertinent issue. As we look at the numbers here, this is taken from the American Heart Association. 1 in 2 women over the age of 40 will have some sort of heart disease. That's, most of us in the next 10, 20 years, half of us could have an episode of heart disease. That's a very scary statistic. In fact, it is, if you look at this graph right here, the rates of cardiovascular disease, that's heart disease, right, in scientific terms, kills, if you will, cancer rates. So this is cancer total rate, death rate. Due to cancer is only 560,000. Heart disease is 831,000. So that's 146% more deaths caused by heart disease than by cancer. So this is a huge issue. All right, so looking at saturated fats, right? This is an important thing. Saturated fats are your bad fats. All right, and a good way to memorize or help remember some of the characteristics about saturated fats is to have a mnemonic device. So S is for saturated. It's also for solid, sludge, and snacks. These are some ways to help you remember, right, what saturated fats are about. So let's go into those more in depth. First, saturated fats are solid. Who is this? Paula. What is her #1 ingredient in almost everything?
Butter.
That's right, because butter is an example of a saturated fat. It's solid at room temperature, right? What are some other examples of solid fats at room temperature? Anyone? Lard, yes. That's another one. Bacon, right? So animal fats. If you think of like a steak or bacon, those are also examples. And sludge, this is a little bit more, this requires a little bit more thinking here. Just run with me on this analogy. Imagine you have a glass of water, right? In this glass of water, you keep adding stuff, say sugar, right? The more sugar you add, the thicker that water gets, right? It can get to as thick as, say, molasses, right? The idea being that the more stuff you add, the thicker your water gets, right? Blood is the same way. The more stuff you add to your blood, the thicker it gets. So what happens when you take saturated fat, your body breaks it down, but those bits and pieces of saturated fats go into your bloodstream and make your blood thicker, right? So that's one idea. On the other hand, we also have this idea that our arteries and our veins are like hoses. And who's ever put their thumb on a hose just to kind of spray stuff down, right? It increases the pressure. If you obstruct the flow of water, you get more pressure. Same thing with blood. If you obstruct the flow of your arteries and veins, you obstruct the flow of blood. That's what we have, that's what the beginnings of high blood pressure, atherosclerosis, right? these are the beginnings of that. And so saturated fats contribute to that sludge making your blood turning into more like sludge and increasing your blood pressure, thereby increasing your risk for heart disease. And then the third one, it's in our snacks. Let's face it, it tastes good, right? It's in all of our sugary and sweet snacks. So examples are like cheese. Love cheese. It's loaded. Saturated fats. Fried foods, also creams. Anything that has cream. Cream is a huge giveaway. Ice cream, sour cream, right? Buttercream in terms of like frostings on cakes or cupcakes. Those are all kind of huge glaring warning signs. Also, another thing to keep in mind are eggs. That'll be important later on. So remember, eggs kind of fall into this category as well. All right. Any questions so far on saturated fats? Cream cheese is a funny one because yes, it does, but I mean, there's so many light cream cheeses, and you know, so yes and no. So I'm gonna give my answer on that one. All right. So moving on into your healthy, your good fats, right? We've already talked about the saturated ones, right? Solid slugs, and there's our snack foods. Unsaturated fats fall into two categories: monounsaturated, polyunsaturated. I'm not going to go into the difference between the two. Just understand that that's where they fall under categorically. And another way to remember your unsaturated fats, because we love the healthy ones, is that it's liquid, unlike the solid saturated fats, and therefore it tends to be in oils. A lot of them are vegetable-based, and some of them are essential, meaning that we can only take them in through our dietary consumption. And so because it's essential, we should eat it every day, but only in moderation. So first, it's liquid, right? That has to do with its chemical structure. I'm not going to go in depth about it, but that's why. Oils, we find a lot of plant-based oils like olive oil, canola, safflower, soybean, peanut, etc. It's also found in fish oil, right? How many of you have seen the tablets of fish oil at the market, right? Or some of you may take that as a supplement. That's going to be in your kind of cold water hardy fish, not like your puny little tilapia, right? Big fish. And then a lot of these are vegetable-based, but they're not necessarily they might not look like oils, but if you think of like avocado, that's a great example. Avocado has a lot of unsaturated fats. Also walnuts, great way to incorporate that into like cookies or your morning oatmeal, right? Also flaxseed chips available at the market now. Like saying it's kind of along the lines of corn. And last but not least, you should eat it every day. I think most of us kind of fall under this category here. 6 teaspoons to give you a real a conversion. That's about 2 tablespoons. It's probably enough to give a good healthy spread of peanut butter on a PBJ. So I don't know about you, but I definitely do more than that. And so that comes to my next point, is that it's I believe really unrealistic to say we should cut out saturated fats entirely, right? Yeah, saturated fats are bad, but it's kind of unrealistic, I think, for all of us to just completely eliminate that out of our diet. So one way to combat that is to substitute healthy options for unhealthy ones, or vice versa, I think. So you can substitute the good instead of taking in the bad types of fats. So for example, in this experiment later on, instead of butter, you can use other substitutes. Or for cream, you can use milk, right? And so let's go through some of these options together. Like let's say someone came to you saying, my doctor told me I need to lower my saturated fat intake. What can I do? Let's say this person has their morning coffee with their splash of half and half. What can this person do instead of using half and half? What was that?
Non-fat milk?
Yeah, non-fat milk. Milk totally works. Even low-fat would work, right? Sauteed vegetables in butter and cheese sauce. What can they do instead?
Olive oil?
Absolutely, olive oil would totally work, or any oil for that matter, right? I want to have a New York steak for dinner. What should I do instead?
Chicken.
Right, chicken works, or you can even ask, if you're cooking it at home or if you're going to a high-end restaurant, ask them to trim the fat. If you still want your steak, just ask them to trim it. And then for dessert, I want ice cream. What can I have instead?
Frozen yogurt.
That's right, Yogurtland. I love that place. And so that brings me to my next thing, is that you can't, rather than completely cutting out items out of your diet entirely, like say cookies, because let's be realistic, who can give up cookies? I certainly can't. Let's try and make healthier cookies. So if I could actually have my two wonderful assist people disperse these cookies out, I want you guys to try these right now. Just go ahead and just munch on them. And I'm going to ask you a few questions regarding them. Okay, thank you. All right, just go ahead, now munch on them. I'm going to discuss it. I hope nobody's allergic to, I don't know, the cookies. Anyone allergic to anything? I should have asked that beforehand. I don't have an EpiPen on me.
I got one.
You're good. Excellent. All right, first thoughts. Yay, nay, try better?
Yay.
Yay? All right, I got one vote yay.
Yay.
Excellent, I got two. So I'm on a roll here. How would you describe the texture?
Chewy.
Chewy, all right. And note that there is a secret ingredient in here. Yeah, what's up?
Fruit in there? Banana?
There is.
So good.
There is. All right, but that's not the secret ingredient, sorry. There's another secret ingredient.
Coconut?
Love.
No, but a really good one. Love, yes, of course. I was baking these till midnight last night.
Applesauce.
No, but that's very commonly used as well as a substitute.
Cornflakes?
Bananas.
Not Splenda. I am anti-Splenda.
Cornflakes? Yogurt?
Cornflakes, yes! Kellogg's cornflakes. Yes, it's to give the crunch, because what butter does is it makes things crunchy, right? When you fry something in oil, it makes it crispy and crunchy. So instead of using that, you can just try and incorporate other creative solutions, right? I know I'm running out of time here. So this recipe, I will disperse these at the end of class, is adopted from a good friend of mine, Nari. She is a grad student here, incredible chef. But it has oatmeal, which is good for your heart. It doesn't use any butter or eggs. It is vegan, therefore. It does use banana in place of egg. And it uses Earth Balance, which is one of these nifty things. I know.
Like
so I
margarine?
have the recipe already
Is that
here.
like margarine?
It's like margarine, but it's not. Margarine tends to use hydrogenated oils, and this is purely oil-based.
Good.
So just one quick thing at the very end. Consider this your exit exam, right? We've already talked about saturated fats and unsaturated fats. Let's say you encountered all of these things, and let's just go through them really quickly together. And just let's try and figure out what they are, right? So red meat, what would you say? Saturated or unsaturated?
Saturated.
That's right, because it's a meat product. It's going to have more. It's going to be higher in saturated fat. Grapeseed oil. That's right. This is an oil. Creme fraiche.
Saturated.
Yes, because it's cream. Eggnog.
Saturated.
Yep. And flaxseed oil. Yep. And this is a tricky one. Coconut oil.
Unsaturated.
Ah, it's actually saturated. I threw that in there for a reason. Coconut oil and palm oil. Those are your two tropical oils that are high in saturated fat. At room temperature, they're actually solid. If you ever go down Whole Foods Market, it's a giant jar of white. It's just white solid. It has a very low melting point. Right. Any questions? Yes, what's up?
Peanut butter considered saturated or unsaturated? Solid.
Peanut butter is considered unsaturated. However, it is still high in fat. So the recommended, it's recommended that you don't take too much of it, but it is higher in unsaturated fat. It's a very good question. There's a lot of iffy ground here. All right, well, thank you so much.